Welcome back to Growth Without Referrals, the podcast where leaders talk honestly about what's actually working to win new business beyond word of mouth. I'm Mark Ferguson, and today I'm joined by Richard Carey, founder of RCDM Studio, a digital agency that's been building, evolving, and adapting for nearly 2 decades. And in Richard's case, telling stories with pictures and words for nearly 50 years. Richard, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Mark. Glad to be here.
All right. So, Richard, you've been in the business of telling stories with pictures and words for decades. But today we're talking about how these stories turn into clients. And if you could, tell me about RCDM and how you started.
Well, I started RCDM when I was riffed from Pearson Education. I was running a software shop there, building large software as a service learning platforms. I was kind of a thought leader in games-based learning for Pearson, but they decided that my division was expendable and they gave 100 people their walking papers. First thing I did was set up a website to make it look like I was doing something, because it's awful hard to get a job when you don't have a job, right? So I stood up a website. I used a lot of the personal writings or research that I had conducted and shared with other executives at Pearson and positioned myself in games-based learning and general software development, software as a service, and so forth. That was the beginning. It was a as they say, necessity is the mother of invention. So I started the company to hire myself so that I wasn't just floating around out there. But as things progressed, working for myself turned out to be a pretty good deal. I have spent time on staff as head of technology, head of development for other companies since then on a fractional basis. But mainly I've been running RCD.
Okay.
Over the years, we have evolved from a builder to a all-purpose or full life cycle digital agency, because one thing that I have learned the hard way, along with my clients, is it's not much good to build something if you can't sell it. So we have developed deep expertise in getting the word out there through multiple channels. And so now we work with clients from concept all the way through release and distribution and support.
Okay, fascinating. So you've been running RCDM Studio for 18 plus years. When you look back, how has client acquisition changed over time?
Well, I had my early successes were referrals from other executives that I'd worked with at Pearson, but that was sort of a gimme, right? My first big win was a cold call. Inbound. I've long had some variation of free consult call to action on my website. A gentleman called, asked me if he could take me up on it. I said, sure. We made a time to talk. Good conversation. He wanted to use games for training, something that I, knew something about. A couple of weeks later, he called me up again. He said, can I take you out to lunch? I'd like to talk to you further. Take me out to lunch rather than pay hundreds of dollars an hour for my time. It's like, okay, if it's a good restaurant. No, seriously, we did have lunch. He shared his vision, something that I thought made sense and something I could help with. Within 60 to 90 days, we generated a working prototype of the app that he had in mind. He presented that at the large Retail Federation trade show at the Javits Center in New York. I went along for the ride just to meet his potential customers and just offer him a hand, hats, collect business cards and a hat, at the end. And one of the people who deposited a card was a executive with a large multinational in Mexico City, subsequently hired my cold call client to come to Mexico City and consult on games-based learning, something that he really knew nothing about. I was the guy, right? So he called me up. He's like, will you be the guy? I don't know anything about this. So we made a deal and we packed our bags and we were off to Mexico City for a week. We met all the senior executives up to the president of this large multinational. Our last morning there, we were having breakfast. I said, and we were kind of driving towards the close, here's what we can do for you. I said, Stuart, this dog ain't going to hunt. They are doing exactly what your app does internally. Said, if, pardon the expression, if I can go off the reservation, I have an idea. Let me just take the whiteboard in our meeting this morning, and I'm going to thank them very much for their time, acknowledge that they were doing something very similar, but that we could take that another step further. And I described a first-person shooter video game, really a first-person seller, because their players were vendedors, 25,000 salespeople in a specialty retailing business. Very high turnover, a lot of spare time on their hands, predominantly younger incoming workforce, 18, 20, 24 years old. What do? They play video games like everybody in that age group. Well, I play video games too, and I passed those years long ago. But I pitched an idea just totally on the fly. They loved it. They hired us, and it turned into a 7-figure project that lasted 2 years. And we indeed created a first-person seller, an immersive world that their salespeople could play while they were waiting for customers to walk in the door, and they could try on different approaches and learn how not to scare people away, learn how to invite them into conversation, learn how to care about them and show empathy and not just go for the sale. And it turned out to be very successful. Cold call, 100% cold call from the beginning. So that was then. That hasn't happened. That has happened a few times, but not lately. I think a lot of people offer free this, free that. It's very hard. I was on a call with a client this morning critiquing their website, which is not converting. And their call to action is free 15-minute demo. Get a 15-minute demo. It's like, okay, what's the problem with that? It's going to take 15 minutes of my time. I don't know if I'm going to like it or not. I don't know if it's going to add value to my business or not. I said, take away 15-minute demo and turn that into free demo. And don't talk about how long it's going to be. Little things like that can really help. But it's definitely gotten more competitive in the years that I've been running RCDM.
Okay. And Richard, I'm intrigued about this discussion you had in Mexico City. And obviously, you instilled trust with that client. What do you think accelerated or brought that trust into that discussion?
It's a lot of intangibles. Probably it was the chemistry between the business sponsor on the client side and myself personally. Really, we really vibed. So that certainly helped. It did not hurt that they were already halfway there. They were looking for a games-based solution, not purely as a motivator, which is what they were doing in-house, but they wanted a games-based solution for their particular demographic that would teach new skills. And they felt that was the way to break through. That was the way to get compliance, for lack of a better word. And it worked. So I think the customer was right. I vibed with the customer. I was excited about the opportunity. I mean, it was going to be a large project. I happen to like large projects. It clearly was going to be complicated. The company, among other things, runs a bank. So the virtual world had to run on the bank's servers behind the firewall. Don't ask. So yeah, so I don't know. They were ready. They were looking for a games-based solution. I had been leading the idea of games-based learning for a large multinational, Pearson Education, and it was the right guy in the right place at the right time.
Great story. And it sounds like, again, it was timing was aligned. And it sounds like you really were very authentic with them and you were a straight shooter. I think that, go ahead.
Yeah, it was easy to be authentic because I believed in what I was preaching. I knew that it would work, and I knew that they were ready for it, but they didn't have the internal vision expertise to go there.
Okay. And Richard, we talked earlier and you talked about your second biggest win, how it came from a cold email that you did with Apollo. And that surprises people. What did you do differently?
I think timing plays a part there. A lot of us use cold email. Lists are vetted lists, and lists with detailed demographics are not hard to come by anymore. So it makes cold email easier. Apollo is a great tool for that. I had followed all of the best practices in crafting a sales letter sequence going out to targeted people from that list, my ideal customer profiles. Most of the time, there's no response. Someone responded, someone was on the list and forwarded it to the head of web development or head of, I don't know, AVP marketing, I guess. Someone within the company forwarded my email, copying me. So, hey, Ava, this just crossed my desk. I looked at his website. It appears this is just the kind of company that you're looking for the overhaul of our website that you've been working on. Check it out. So I see this and, I get 200 emails a day on a bad day or a good day. I saw it fairly quickly, fairly soon after it came in. And I was like, okay, who's Ava? There's her email address. I wrote to Ava. I copied the email, wrote to Ava probably within 15 minutes of her colleague forwarding my message. It's like, hey, yeah, I'm here. I'm alive. Let's talk. I understand that you have a major web project. We love major web projects, blah, 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 whatever. A very simple note. She responded. We set up a meeting and it's probably turned into the largest single web development project that I've undertaken.
Amazing.
It wasn't seven figures, but it was high five figures. It was a deep, complex site, total cold email. Again, serendipity, timing, I saw the response when it came in. I responded to it. Of course, now this was maybe 5 years ago. We didn't have the AI tools that we have now. You can intercept those kinds of messages programmatically and respond automatically. But I think timing is everything.
Timing's everything. And I think the way you approached it, most people wouldn't have done. I mean, within 15 minutes, you sent the email to Ava. You weren't shy, but you weren't
Right.
pushy. You
Right.
didn't want to come across like spam. You were just like, hey, let's have a conversation. I'm the guy.
That's
And
basically what I said. I didn't say much more than that. It did not hurt that I was forwarding or responding to her colleague's email. But yeah, I guess so.
that's good.
You gotta be out there if you're going to be in sales. I never thought that I would be in sales, but if you run a small company, hell, if you run a big company, you're in sales. It comes with the territory.
It does. It does. And in our conversation, you said you don't change industries, you change tools. And what does that mean in the context of growth?
I started telling stories with still photos and words and making little picture books when I was a kid. I discovered that if I knew how a camera worked, I knew how a movie camera worked. And my first career was a filmmaker. I was a filmmaker gravitating towards producing, occasionally directing. Film begat video, video begat pay cable and variations on that theme. I really loved the work and I'm pretty darn good at it. I hated the industry, the entertainment industry in particular, just didn't really do it for me. We won't go there, but it wasn't my vibe. I had the opportunity to consult a defense contractor on how to present their intellectual property. Because after all, when you're selling a film, you're selling an idea. You're selling, here it is. Look in my hand. Don't look too hard. It's very delicate. And that introduced me to the internet. They were selling the internet as a private branded data networking tool. They had to send me to internet school. I spent, I guess, 6 weeks in San Jose at their network operations center. One day I was talking with one of the senior engineers. This was in the days when Apple's QuickTime video protocol and other video compression protocols were a thing. I asked them if you could send a video file over this network, and aware that as a filmmaker, as a producer, your biggest challenge is getting past the networks, getting past the studios. And he said, yeah, I said, have you ever considered that? Ding, it's like a little, cell phone, the cell phone ding is going off in my head, like repeatedly. I'm saying, wow, this could work. I said, could you do that? He said, oh, absolutely. I said, why don't you approach that market? He said, nobody wants to do that. And the little bell went off, ding, 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 ding. So that's how I transitioned from pictures, still pictures and words, to motion pictures and sound, to web pages and interactivity, web pages and delivering agency to my users, whether it was to purchase something, make an order, customize something, or play a game or learn. So people say, well, oh, you've been in all of these different industries. You keep changing businesses. It's like, no, I just changed the hammer and saw that I use. Now, they're just called different things. They work in different ways, but to me, they're just the same tool. They're the same tool, somewhat different rules. It evolves.
Well, Richard, I hear this and a couple of things come out to me, right? So one, storytelling is a constant theme that you do, right? And then also how amazing your adaptability, right? As technologies change, you saw, well, I'm doing still pictures, I'm doing videos, and you adapted. And that's strong. That's amazing. And what kills agencies? What keeps them relevant?
Well, that's a double-edged sword. What keeps them relevant? Adapting.
Yes.
Now today it's AI. AI is moving so fast. But adaptivity, the changing tools, I think is part of it. I think that's the way that you survive and thrive. The corollary to that is not adapting or staying stuck in old school tools, staying stuck in hand coding. It's like hand coding is not a thing anymore. Vibe coding is a thing. This afternoon, I have a meeting with a colleague. We're going to vibe code an app that I think solves a problem a lot of people have. I guess we'll see. So you've got to stay fast on your feet. You've got to stay flexible. You've got to set aside a certain amount of time each week to just screw around, just wonder what's possible with these tools. That's what I've always done. Whether it was making the leap into film, making the leap into television, making the leap onto the internet, getting involved in e-commerce, in online learning and learning games, and in marketing, adding marketing to my bag, and now learning these new AI tools. It's scary and exciting at the same time.
So true. And the velocity that we're seeing with these changes and capabilities. And to your point, years back, it was hand coding. Websites were tough to build. They took time. But now we see AI and other things coming in where they can help facilitate the rendering of these assets so much quicker.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just amazing. And with growing business, what growth channel still works for you?
I think what channels work for me. It's not a channel. It's a multiplicity of channels. I'm a big believer in multi-touch marketing. I'm a big believer in being everywhere my customer is, whether it's scrolling their Facebook feed or their LinkedIn feed, whether it's through remarketing, reading the news, or playing a game, or whatever they do with a website, having my message show up or my client's message show up in context. I don't think that it's one thing. I don't think that you can survive on referrals alone. You can't survive on cold email alone. You can't survive on remarketing to past clients alone. You can't survive on advertising alone. It's all of those things. Depending upon what you're selling, the mix might be different. The emphasis might be different, how much energy you put into one channel or another. It depends, right? I mean, a software as a service B2B product is different from a consumer buy it online, get it shipped product, for a silly example. Yeah. So
right?
I think multi-channel marketing, I think or multi-touch marketing is
Okay.
really what you want to go for.
And there again, that adaptability, you have multiple, not more than, you don't have just one channel, you have many channels, and you see what's working based upon timing
Hmm.
and where things are. And Richard, if you were to start RCDM Studio from scratch this year, how would you build your pipeline?
Good question. I definitely would start with, I mean, the assumption here is that I've been in business, some kind of business. So I'm
Hmm.
coming from somewhere. I'm not a cold start. So I would start with my existing and recent customers and older customers, and I'd reach out to them either directly or for a referral or I'm doing this new venture. Do you know anybody who needs this kind of widget? So you're dealing with people who know you, who have some trust, presumably, and they're in your network. So that would be however you reach out to them. I was counseling a client earlier today on coming up with 20 short list of 25 ICPs, ideal customer profiles of real people, real names, real phone numbers, real email addresses, real LinkedIn profiles, and troll them. I mean, if see what they're into, and then reach out to them. How each person is going to be different. Somebody's in your town, somebody's nearby. You can arrange to run into them by accident at Starbucks and, "Hey, aren't you
Mm,
Mark from," I mean, I think all's fair in marketing. So that's where I would start, and I would start doing that exactly, coming up with a short list of 25 ideal customers, not necessarily from my existing or recent clientele, but researching verified contact information, whether it's using Apollo or Jiva or any one of a number of tools, is so easy today. So you sharpen your pencil, you sharpen the ideal customer profile, you acquire 25 names, and you start working them. And you start working them with email, you start working them with targeted advertising, you start working them with whatever it is that's appropriate for your business so that they start to see your name, your brand show up where they are. And eventually you've got to reach out and make an ask or make an offer.
mm.
I see that you're having this problem, or I sense that you're having this problem. I believe I can help. Would you like to chat? Send cookies. Seriously. I have a friend who was renovating her beach house in the Hamptons, and every day she showed up with a fresh plate of chocolate chip cookies for the work crew. Now, I don't know if you've ever built anything or renovated something, but getting carpenters and plumbers and other tradespeople to show up day after day and not go off do somebody else's job. She delivered cookies every day. It was a sales job, and it worked.
I like that. That's a good one. So, Richard, what's one belief about business development that you've changed your mind about over the years?
Nobody's gonna do it for you. I
Mm,
think when I started my first company, my first real named, organized, incorporated company, I had a partner. I perceived him to be much more extroverted, much more out there, connected, and honestly, I thought, "Okay, well, you sell, I'll make." Doesn't work that way. I think everybody has to be their own best sales agent. That's a that's foundational. I think that you can't rely on a single channel. No one channel is going to work all the time. So whether you call it multi-touch marketing or multi-channel marketing, figure it out. Where are your people, and repeat your message clear. And that's another thing. Repetition is good too. Repetition of the message, whether it's a graphic, a video, a tagline, a headline. I think it's important to make the same impression time and time and time again. Now, of course, you want to test so that you're certain that you have the right message, but repetition is important. So nobody's going to do it for you. Multiple channels are vital. A clear, focused brand message that addresses a real problem that your ideal customers have, and then follow through, follow through, follow through.
okay. Richard, this has been very good, amazing. And I believe that you've given some items and nuggets to people. So thank you. And if
You're welcome.
people want to follow your work or connect to you, where should they go?
Well, my website is a good place to start, studio.com. I'm Richard at rcdmstudio.com. Yes, I still offer a free 30-minute consultation, no questions asked. And if we find common ground, then we'll take it to the next level. So
Okay.
you can find me on LinkedIn, Instagram, and Facebook. Yeah, I show up there too. Mostly it's my foodie work. I'm an amateur chef or
Nice.
pro-am. It's a little bit of a side hustle. So you can see my
Okay.
food. You can see my food on Instagram and on Facebook. I'd love to chat with anybody. If you think that I can help, if you want to bounce some ideas off of me, I love to talk. I have a huge amount of experience, and it doesn't do any good if it's just sitting inside my head. So very, very happy to chat with folks.
Excellent. And for our audience, just to let you know, at the bottom of this podcast, we'll have Richard's contact information.
Great.
So we have Richard Carey, founder of RCDM Studio. Thank you for joining us on Growth Without Referrals.
My pleasure, Mark. My pleasure. Always good talking to you.
Thank you.